All right, we'll call this Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. This board has a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement that we've written. It's posted to the board's website. Roll call. I don't think Josh is going to be here tonight, and I think Keith is also absent. Moving to, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second. All those in favor? All right, that passes. Moving on to announcements. Do we have any announcements?
I've got one that I've got in my GM report, but I could also make it now just to make sure that people are aware, which is that we're going to have a Clean Green event on June 11th from 9 to 3. Just so I want to make sure people are aware of that so they can be ready to take advantage of that, bring the debris down to the Clean Green area.
Good to know. Any other announcements? All right, not seeing any. We'll move to property owner comments.
All right, we've got one hand raised already from our 23 attendees. I'm going to go ahead and bring Kevin on over. Kevin, I brought you to the meeting. Go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you just fine.
I just want to continue to lobby for reasonable restrictions on the proposed property acquisition, aka the Sunmark property. So I'd like this board to consider some irrevocable measures to protect Lake Louise. I don't know what these measures would look like exactly. They might include protections stimulated in our bylaws or covenants, restrictions, maybe rezoning. I don't know, some agreeable permanent solution. Because I believe that purchasing the property without implementing protections for the lake would be irresponsible and negligent. So, and it's not because I don't trust your intentions, the intentions of this board at this time. I'm just very cognizant of the fact that you each represent a single vote on a single board. So essentially your intentions have an expiration date. And sadly, this community must continue to be protected against itself once you're gone. So, I don't want this board to be the last defense against the grand opening of, I don't know, Mitch's used car dealership or some other lake destroying enterprise. I think it was your decision to buy the property. It's your obligation to protect the lake. So to that end, I just want to ask the board if you would be willing to meet with the North Cascade Audubon Society to hear their concerns and learn what they think can be done to protect the fragile bird sanctuary on Lake Louise. And, I don't know, I'm not an ornithologist, but maybe certain times of the year, like during nesting season, activities on the lake will need to be curbed. Anyway, I don't know, but I've reached out and they're willing to come share their expertise with you. And I think the community, as well as put their recommendations in writing. So I guess, are you receptive to speaking with them? And likewise, are you willing to listen to others who could be damaged by the commercialization of Lake Louise? For example, there's a Valley Market and Deli across the street. It's been a staple in this community for 30 years, I understand. But they have a right to be concerned about the sale of products that could undermine their business. This board has already talked about turning the property into a profit center. And so that, and even mentioned that could include sales of coffee and pastries. Well, that's a slippery slope. That turns into breakfast burritos and maybe a full breakfast and lunches, dinners. And now you're undermining a local business. And, that may not concern you, but I'll add that if the gasoline pumps were ever shut off, I suspect it would be difficult to re-permit them in an impaired watershed. So are you willing to hear these concerns of other stakeholders? And finally, how about the concern from your neighbors that live near the lake who also don't want it turned into a circus environment? So, there's a very passionate group that is growing exponentially. How can this group express their concerns and advocate for permanent protections short of 200 or 300 people commenting during these periods on your board meetings? I mean, I don't know. Is there even an existing mechanism short of a petition that would allow us to be heard collectively? So, fine, I see the 3-minute warning. And I just want to follow up on a request I made at a preceding board meeting. And that is I asked for records showing the quantity and type of fertilizer used on the golf course. And I remember, Sonia, you emphatically claimed that the board had that information and would pass it on. I have yet to receive it. So, my concern is from what I hear from this community is that the golf course enjoys some unrivaled degree of autonomy within Sun Valley. For some reason, they get to walk between the rain. So I just want to remind you that the golf course could be closed with a stroke of a pen. The marina could be closed with a stroke of a pen. Destruction of our forest in the name of development could be halted with a simple vote. So, and if not that, at the other end of the spectrum are 100,000 people who might decide one day that they no longer want to subsidize our recreational activities or deforestation. So, change could come fast. In fact, I think technically the marina, it could be an NPDES facility tomorrow, a single point source. So I'll just end with a plea. Let's start measuring our impact on the environment. And let's start making measures to mitigate our impact. And that's all I really want to ask.
So Kevin, we do have the fertilizer list, and Rich Johnson's going to be posting that onto the website. And if you want to email him directly, he can also send it to you via email, but it is going up on the website soon. So
yeah, I already requested that in a subsequent email from after the board meeting.
Okay, all right. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Can I speak? Because I want to encourage the previous speaker to read the critical area ordinances and the Whatcom County overlay. They're really strict, and they're about to get stricter with some new amendments being proposed to County Council. And no, you don't have to worry about a used car lot. That is way up on the forbidden things to do in the watershed, as are keeping kennels of dogs. And I could think of a dozen things, but I'm sure you get the idea. It's not going to be able to be overly commercialized with things that conflict with the watershed under the ordinances. And as far as the Valley Mart, hell, they make their money on booze and beer and all that good stuff. And I don't see that happening in the new property. Thank you.
Kanu, did you have something?
Yes, sir, what is your name? It was Nick?
It was Kevin.
Kevin, sorry. Kevin, you ended your 3 minutes or 4 minutes with a plea, but throughout your entire dialogue to us or monologue to us, you actually accused us of undermining this board, of undermining a business. You realize the property hasn't been purchased yet. So I would ask you to be more thoughtful when you actually convey your thoughts. On top of that, you accused us, but then you also made a plea. And then you went on to further threaten us that, things could be closed at the signing of a paper or something. So I'm just wondering, is that how you think things are going to get done? Do you think that we're convinced of anything that you want to get to move forward? I'm waiting for a response.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. He's actually back with the attendees at this point.
Okay, that's probably best.
Brian, do you have something?
Yeah, yes, I do. Actually, I would be happy to meet with the Audubon Society. I think it'd be great, but I do understand Canute's points as well. That was a lot to throw at us, Kevin, for sure. Thanks.
All right, next up we have Steffi. I'm going to go ahead and bring Jan over here. And Steffi, I've brought you into the meeting. If you could unmute when you're ready.
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Yeah.
Woohoo! First try. Hi guys, Steffi Jones. I 15 Cascade Lane. I have a couple questions that I've been seeing on the community websites. So I just wanted to go ahead and ask those questions for the community. There's a lot of buzz about the Sunmark Realty purchase, and people are asking about the maintenance plan and if you plan on involving the community in the decision-making of usage. So I was hoping you could touch on that a little bit if that is not involved in the meeting. There's some misinformation going on around about the dock. So if you could reiterate that. And also, okay, so that's the marina. There was one other thing, I'm sorry. Oh, El Agave. I would really love just a brief recap of where we're at, because there is a ton of misinformation that I like to call just plain lies, basically. I don't know where misinformation became a word, but I'm not a fan. There's a ton of things going around saying that nothing's being done. We're just sitting on it, letting it stew and rot. So I'd like just a brief update on that. It's my job to research things, but I was just hoping we could just kind of squash some of this. And I felt like they were legitimate questions. And I honestly, I don't know why people don't take the time to go on and do that. It's hard. It's a lot of work. And, speaking isn't fun either. But then I also wanted to make a comment that, the board is being held responsible for a lot of this communication. And I would appreciate it, Mr. Pike, if you picked up on that and got staff to maybe put out the information in e-blasts and, just get the information circulating. And we do have a Facebook page too. So I don't think that is the job of the board to communicate or delegate all that. And that would be great, because I'd like them to focus on what they're actually doing and moving forward. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steffi. I'll go ahead and return you to the attendees here. All right.
So we are just, I'm working on putting together a strategic planning team meeting, hopefully in the near future, so that the board, long range planning and staff can kind of discuss how we will go about bringing the community into a discussion on the Lake Whatcom Boulevard property. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some, I would imagine a survey may result from that, and maybe some other suggestions. But that was something I was planning on hoping to put together here in the next several weeks. And then as far as the other two things, don't have an update on the marina dock quite yet, but hopefully we'll have more information at the next board meeting. And I can't speak to El Agave right at this moment, but I know Tyler's going to be giving some project updates on some things, and we are working on putting together some written communication with him and the general manager and Rich to push out to the community as well.
Oh, yeah.
If I could just speak for just a minute, I was going to say that starting next week, we're going to be putting out e-blasts probably twice a week, partly in response to a lot of miscommunication that's happening in the public. Basically, we just want to make sure that we provide accurate information so that people understand. And then that will then be pushed as well to the the Sudden Valley Facebook page, just to make sure that we give people an easy place to go to get information when there's, innuendo and rumors swirling about the community. So hopefully that'll be helpful as well. And as AJ said, we've got, he's been putting together a plan of how we report out on what's happening with different projects and like that I think will be helpful. And I think you'll hear about some of the things you're interested in tonight from Tyler. Some of the issues continue to be a challenge because speaking about things that are potentially in litigation or actually actively in litigation, we have to be very careful how we speak about them without compromising Sudden Valley's position. But I think that we can do that. So we'll work on that. Thank you.
Brian?
Steffi, thanks for calling in. It was nice to hear your voice.
All right, we'll move on to our next attendee here. We've got Raul. I'm going to go ahead and bring you on over here, Raul. If you could unmute when you're ready.
Hi, I live on Gate 3, and I was looking at the recall form they had, which also on the first section on the refund was misleading. It was totally misleading. The fact is that they're saying we needed this funds. It was over, over 1.2 million. The bottom line, it's illegal, and your attorney will advise you about illegality is absolutely right. I'm looking at my title right now. It's misleading. It says transfer fee 25% of property value, $125. Then above that it says HOA charges. Now it's misleading. $862. So I was charged $700 for extra for basically for whatever somebody wanted to do with that money, and it wasn't theirs to do that. It just isn't. And I'm wondering if that was a previous board. I'm pretty sure it was a previous board, and that makes sense because they did a whole lot of things that you guys are cleaning up. Brown was barking the other last week talking about his accomplishments, and I just spotted one right here that had they stopped it right from the beginning, not even allowed to have the so-called HOA extra fee to fill the coffers, of the budget to have more money, and that's fine. Everybody needs more money, but I expect my refund. Back then, I told Brown. I stated to Brown and said, "Hey, this fee, it's not right. It's not right." And what his response was, I said, "Why do you have to pay that much to move in here?" He said, "Because it's a privilege for you to move in." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. But it's also, you should be grateful that the middle class is moving in here to subsidize people in a higher income to run this place. Because if you keep running it this way, it's not going to be sustainable. It's just not going to be." So basically, that's all I got to say. I got more to say about some other things, but I don't have enough time now. And there's a lot of misleading information. I'm not going to sign that recall. No way. I think people are not giving you guys credit. I disagree with last week's AJ on the purchase of that land without giving the membership allowing the membership to give you feedback. How much money how much is going to cost the budget? Is it going to raise the homeowners dues next year in November? Are the roads going to be able to be done? How about the bridge and all the things you got planned? How's that $1.5 million going to affect that? And you don't have to do all the roads, side roads, all at one time. You can pay as you go. You can do some of them. They're not all bad. And then do as much as you can within the budget you have. And then next summer, pick up where you left off and finish it and stay within the budget. I mean, I hope you take that approach. Don't try to get everything done in one time, and then before you know it, your homeowners dues just keep going up. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. I'll go ahead and return you to the attendees here.
So Joel gave a presentation at last month's meeting that, there's no anticipation that our capital budget will be significantly impacted by the purchase. Certainly understand some of the sentiments from the community, but it is a negotiation to be able to purchase a property. So there is that. And I appreciate that you're not wanting to do a recall, and we are moving fund with the transfer fee refund, and the same people who are doing the recall are the same people who double dues and now don't want you to get your refund. So I'll just throw that out there.
All right, and got one more hand raised. I'm so sorry, I've been forgetting to prompt for people to give their name and address. If you could please do that when I bring you over. I've got Linda here. Linda, I've brought you over to the meeting. If you could unmute when you're ready.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
We can
Just
hear
have
you.
a quick statement. So, AJ, on the April 28th meeting of the board, you came out of closed session and you announced that and you asked for a vote, and it was approved by the board to release the attorney's memo or whatever it was on the ADA compliance for the parks, I believe. And you were going to release that. I'd like to know when, where, and how it's going to be released to us. I haven't seen that posted anywhere. And that's the only thing I got.
All right, thank you, Linda.
Okay, we'll work with Dan and Rich on getting that out.
All right, I believe that's everybody for now.
All right, move on to general manager's report. I'll pass it over to Dan.
Thanks, AJ. So just going through what's been happening, just starting with something I already talked about, but I just want to emphasize it again that we're going to have Clean Green Saturday, the 11th from 9 to 3. Also just want to let folks know that Parks and Rec has completed its seasonal hiring and is ready for the pool opening this weekend. And I just want to give kudos to the assistant manager, Alex Allen, and Rich Johnson, who's our operations manager, who really oversaw that effort and did a lot of work in a very short amount of time to get folks brought on board. And Rich also did the onboarding of those folks to make sure that they were all properly hired. And speaking of that, Rich has also become our in-house HR expert with our software. And it probably doesn't sound like a lot, but if you are, it's the sort of thing you notice when it's not there. And Rich has done a great job of stepping up and making sure that that function is working more smoothly. So we've been able to add a large contingent of seasonal hires, both in Parks and Rec as well as some in golf. And I just want to give him credit because he came on board, he took that stuff on, and he does it with humor and efficiency, both of which are essential components to making the whole office work better. Golf has also been busy despite a really damp season so far. They've started getting a bunch of tournaments lined up. They held one last weekend that had 116 players for members. It's the members tournament. And then they're also lining up quite a few other events in the months ahead. They've also just completed a hire for a new turf care superintendent. So we're really pleased to welcome Greg Waddell aboard. He'll be joining us full-time as of June 6th. And then maintenance has been busy just with a lot of routine stuff, but this is a time of year when things get a lot busier. So, besides the mowing and picking up some debris and the like from some of the storms, they've also completed the renovations or the repairs on the AM/PM Park bathroom. So those are ready to open for the season. And so I think I'll stop there for right now, but that's just a flavor of what's going on. There's also a lot of things going on that are going to be addressed in Tyler's report. So I look forward to sharing more with you through what he says. Yeah, Rick, I'm sorry, Sam.
Yeah, I got a question about the marina. Is there a couple of slips set aside right now for courtesy launching? Some guys have talked to me about. There's some people that launch by themselves, which I used to do too. And and having a slip so they could get it off the trailer, park it, and then go park their rig. You know, it's just one of those things. There are some people that work by themselves doing that. So if there could be at least two next to that fireboat, right there, keep them as close as possible if it is possible, if we got that, because until we get that other stuff in there, it'd be really nice for those guys to be able to actually have a little courtesy loading launching thing. And,
Sure.
mark it with signs and make sure it's clearly marked out of what that's for. Thank you.
So I believe I will confirm with Alex, but I believe that we convinced some folks to move their boats around, so we have one. The marina is actually oversubscribed, so it's been challenging. This is one of the challenges that's been put on us with the dock that was built illegally, unfortunately. It's meant that we've had to do some things after the fact in a really tough environment to move things around when people, of course, want their boats on their slips. But I will confirm with Alex tomorrow. I'm like 95% certain that I was told that they have succeeded in doing that. But I'll confirm that, and I'll just throw that into some of the stuff that I put out in the e-blast so people are aware of that.
Thank you, Dan.
But it's only one, to be clear. There's not capacity right now. Thanks. And I guess I will just reemphasize, sort of responding to what Steffi had talked about, that we are going to be putting out a very intentional series of e-blasts and other information on a regular basis, just to make sure that we do address some of the questions that are arising from the community about a variety of issues. And so some of those will be generated internally, and some will happen in response to questions that people just forward to us. Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to project update with Tyler.
Okay, thanks, AJ. So there's quite a few. I'm just going to kind of go through them here in bullet points, and then if there's any questions on any of them, feel free to either stop me or ask them as I conclude here. So I'll start with the clubhouse. On the clubhouse, the building assessment has been completed. We're currently waiting on receiving some more HVAC proposals to come in for replacing the air handler unit that's proposed to be replaced this year. In the kitchen, the asbestos remediation is complete. The water remediation is complete. And we're currently waiting on contractor proposals to get the repair started in there and get El Agave back in there. The 2022 Potholes Project. We've marked all the potholes that will be included in this contract in white paint. So as you're driving around the valley, you'll probably see white paint here and there. And that's what we call kind of the minor potholes that are included this year. I believe we've gotten all the ones that the community has pointed out to us and that maintenance has found. With that, the contract has been executed with Hyzenga Enterprises, who's the contractor doing the work. They're tentatively scheduled to start the end of next week with saw cutting. And then the following week, they'd be coming in there to start the repairs. That will take approximately 2 weeks. The overall project is weather dependent, so the exact schedule is a little bit up in the air, but beginning of next week, mid next week, they'll be providing us with a better schedule, kind of detail on how they're gonna move throughout the valley by gate to get that done. The larger project for this year, the 2022 road project, the design is complete. Permit applications have been submitted to Whatcom County, and a bid package has been issued to numerous contractors. Bids are due back on Monday, June 6th, and this is planned to be presented to the board for contract award at the next board meeting on June 9th. The project's anticipated to start July 5th. And that is assuming permits are issued, but then will be complete by the end of September. Substantial completion has been identified as September 15th, just to allow a couple extra weeks of cushion on there, and then final closeout with the contractor. Once that project is awarded with the contract, we'll be getting a schedule from the contractors, and that'll be shared with the community as well, with better updates on overall start time and just which roads they're going to be doing and when. So we'll get that information shared with the community. The other road project we're calling the 2022 Road and Drainage Notice of Activity Project. That's currently in design, and I've toured all of the locations with the engineers so they're aware of what's proposed everywhere. That design is anticipated to be complete with an NOA, the Notice of Activity application, submitted to Whatcom County in about 2 weeks. And a bid package is anticipated to be issued out to contractors the week of June 6th, where the current goal is that we'd be presenting this to the board at the June 23rd meeting for contract award. Construction would be anticipated to start later in July and be complete by the end of September. The playgrounds, the landscape architect, Pacific Landscape Architecture, that was hired, has completed the as-built at each of the 5 playgrounds and is about 75% complete with the design per the update I got from them earlier today. Once the design is complete, in probably a week or so, bid package will be put together for that, and we'll get some numbers put out. The Barn 7 Foundation Removal Project, the permit application has been submitted to Whatcom County, and we're waiting on Whatcom County. Removal of the foundation, though, is anticipated to be completed this summer. I don't see any issues with that schedule. The Barn 8 siding replacement project, we're currently waiting on a couple proposals from architects for assisting with basically designing for the siding replacement. The overall intent is that we'll be maintaining the barn look and just replacing the siding that's on it. The siding itself, the project, the construction would be proposed to be completed this fall then after the summer pool season closes. The marina parking lot is a little project, but what's proposed to be done down there is filling in all the potholes, general grading of the gravel surface just to smooth it out, kind of clean things up, and then getting all of the stalls marked. That's a scope of work that is tied to the Lake Whatcom watershed window, so it hasn't been completed yet because it can't start until after June 1st. It is anticipated to be completed in the month of June, and Sudden Valley has an existing permit that already covers this scope of work. The golf course bridge, an HBA has been issued by the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. And we're currently waiting now on Whatcom County to issue the remaining permits, and that is why construction hasn't started yet. I'm hopeful that those will be issued soon, but I have no guarantee from Whatcom County on when they are coming. Contract is currently executed with P&P Excavating, who is the contractor that will be doing the project. Sudden Valley does have the bridge secured. It's currently being stored by Contact, who is the bridge manufacturer. And their yard is down in Colorado, where it's currently getting full of other bridges for this summer. So Sudden Valley will be accepting delivery of that bridge here in the month of June, regardless of having permits in hand. And we'll be storing it or placing it, hopefully, down in the rec center parking lot in the interim if we need to. So far, Contact has stored it for free at no charge to Sudden Valley, which has just allowed us to help minimize any obstructions down in that rec corridor parking lot. And that's, I think, the end of my general summary on all the different projects that are starting in the background or being worked on in the background here. I guess Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Actually, I have this question concerning the pothole things and at work. It's actually, I'd like to ask Rich if he's working with you in conjunction with that, throwing out some generic signs at all the gates that are, you know, some kind of exotic colors, whatever it takes to get everybody's attention, that stuff's going to be happening throughout, and just a beginning warning that there will be stuff going on.
And the good thing about the potholes is they're pretty quick. Like when they show up to saw cut each location, it'll take maybe a half hour. And when they come back to actually do the excavation and put the new asphalt in, you're talking only a couple hours at each location, minor traffic impacts. And there's actually hardly any that are on the main roads. Most of these are all on either the shoulders, secondary roads, or the residential roads. So should be pretty minimal impacts in the big picture as well.
Thank you.
Tyler, when you said the barn 8 residing, is that the ice barn?
No, that is the recreation barn.
Okay.
Any other questions for Tyler? We are working on getting everything drafted up in a written form to be able to put to the community, and working with Dan and Rich on creating a project section on the website for kind of continuous updating. So stay tuned for that. Nancy?
Is anything going on with the ice barn? As in plans for it or permitting?
At this time, I don't have anything going on with specifically the ice barn.
Thank you.
I would say I continue to have some conversations with the county and with the Opportunity Council. So there may be something, but we're not there yet.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. Not seeing any other questions, so we'll move on to pass it over to Joel for the March financials. Is Joel here? Yeah, there he is. It's like I saw him here.
Okay,
Right in the
thank
middle.
you.
Right in the middle.
I'll share my screen here. Okay, everyone, I assume can see the balance sheet. Now I'll go over, let's see, so I did the finance committee last week where I went over these in a lot more depth. So so this time around, I'll just give you the Cliff Note version, the abbreviated version. So I'll just start off with the balance sheet here. There's no major changes going on with the balance sheet. I pointed this out the last couple of months. I'll just point it out again. So what I highlighted right here in blue, this capital reserve holding cash fund, which was sitting right here, 1.157 million at the end of December 31, 2021. You'll see it's been zeroed out, and actually that money was transferred into SURF, capital reserve holding cash fund. So the money is in here. If you're wondering why this has been zeroed out, it's been put into this line item and moved into a SURF account altogether, meaning a SURF cash account, premium money market account. And the other funds were sitting in a premium money market account as well. So there's really no difference in interest rates and stuff like that. Now going on to the next page, which is, so this is pretty much the bottom line, the most interesting page, showing the income for the association. And obviously this first half, or the first part of this page here, first few columns, this is the current month to date. But this is, you might as well just talk about this. Now this is the year to date. So this is all 3 months, January 1 through March 31, 2022. And this column right here is the operating portion of it. And I'll talk about the collection rate first real fast. So the collection rate is 95.7% that we finished the month of March. Year-to-date collection rate, 95.7%. Our budget, as you recall, is 93%. So we're higher than that, 270 basis points, whatever, 2.7% higher collection rate wise. And I mentioned before in the past, like, so if someone's wondering, well, what does that really mean if we're over budget? I mean, better than budget collection rate wise. So for every 1% increase, it's you can figure about another $22,000 of money coming into the operations category that, like better than budgeted. So since at the end of the year, if we were 95% versus 93%, then we'd have $44,000 more coming into operations, helping out operations. So anytime you're over a budget, that's on collection, then obviously that's a good thing. Just really quickly in terms of comparison for collection rates. So we're at 95.7% at the end of March year to date. At the end of March 2021, we were 91%. The end of March 2020, we were actually 93%. But so we were lower in the prior 2 years as we are this year. And then the other 2 years, even though we were, so at March 2021, we were at 91% collection rate wise. We still finished out the year at 96.8% collection rate wise at the end of December 2021. So meaning we start out always at the lowest in January, then we steadily build up and usually end the year at the highest collection rate. So meaning the bottom line is we're doing well collection rate wise, doing better than we have the last couple of years. And year to date wise, so I've already calculated April's collection rate. We're still sitting steady at 95.7%. That's so we're doing really well. We're ahead of budget where we were last year at this time, the year before that. So that is good. So there's certainly no concerns there in terms of collection rate. Now the bottom line in terms of our net income, so we're sitting at $172,054 net income, operating income. Last year at this time we were at $131,310. This is showing that we're worse than budget by $37,044, and I'll talk about that just one second. Last year at this time, so year to date March 2021, we were worse than budget by $9,357. Of course, now a big reason why that is because basically it's how I reshuffled the budget, meaning in terms of in the budget software, how I'm telling the budget when we're expecting this marina income to hit. So like in the prior couple of years, usually how this place has been doing it is they have marina, all these wet slips and dry slips and that sort of stuff, the income coming in terms of the budget, like March, April, May, like one third. But basically it's the vast majority of it is billed for in March. So in the budget software, I said, well, except all of it's going to be budgeted to show up in March. So, but then we bill for it in March, so it automatically hits the revenue accounts. But then, it'll take, like another month or so at least for the billings to go out, for the money to come back in. So then at the end of March, usually a big bulk of this gets written off as bad debt expense, but then it reverses as those payments come in. But basically, I guess what I'm getting at is bottom line, if I were to have done it how it's always been done, and said only 1/3 of it will show up in March, then instead of seeing worse than budget by $75,729, it would actually show better than budget by $24,735. And instead of being worse than budget net income wise by $37,044, it'd actually say better than budget by $62,980 to be exact. But that's why it's basically the shuffling of how I'm budgeting when this revenue is going to show up. And so that makes a difference in terms of, especially this early in the year. Now going on to the next page, this capital reserve funds page, and this is a really, really handy page. I refer to it quite a lot. This is where you see the major accounts or roads, especially the big components of our dues, mailbox, funds, then you have emergency ops and UDR those are the big ones. But it's basically the dues money coming in, the cash coming in, then you'll have the expenditures. Now vast majority of these expenditures will just be not necessarily expenditures, but meaning like money spent on capital purchases, the stuff that the board approved, and these are checks getting written to pay for projects, so on and so forth. And then you'll have the actual net available cash at 3/31/2022, and these numbers will tie right back to the balance sheet. So there's 3,058,577. I could go right back to the balance sheet, and here it is for SURF. And by the way, that beginning number, 2.7 million roughly for SURF, I would expect to see it, which of course I do, the beginning cash balance for SURF. And then the more interesting section of this would be the basically kind of the outlook, what we're forecasting will happen. And you have big components of it, like the SURF loan payments right here, the dues coming in at 93%. And the obligated expenses, basically this is, so this 631,870 right here, if I were to, so this is the capital project report. And for the SURF page, so this is all the projects that the board has approved. The green dots are the open ones. The red dots, these are going to be closed out here very quickly, like for finalizing for the audit. But obviously it's not figured into the obligated funds portion of it. But this is the amount left over that we have budgeted to spend on capital projects that the board has approved, 631,870. And so these are all the projects that have been approved through the month of March. And then that ties right back to right here, 631,870. And same thing with roads. If I went and pulled up in the roads capital project sheet, same thing. And then you have the board recommended carryover balance, which is just basically a recommended, like set aside 600,000. And then you have the net usable cash projected at the end of 2022. So SURF is 2.63 million, roads 2.9 million essentially, mailbox about 100,000, UDR 323,415, and so on. And then I pointed out this before, but I'll point it out one more time. So the capital reserve holding fund, so there's that 1,157,885. You'll see we also had some basically transfer fees coming in in 2022. These are holdover amounts, meaning from home sales in 2021. Then by the time it's finally clearing, the checks are getting to us in 2022. Then that's why you're seeing some still trickle in right here. But this is really starting to come to just a small little drip at this point in March in terms of money still coming to us from title companies. And then this will just stop altogether probably real fast here. I think the other month, maybe in April, we only took in maybe $44 of it or so. So we're probably getting real close to not seeing that come in anymore. But then you'll see this is where I'm transferring it away into the SURF capital reserve holding cash fund right here. Then when we get to the bottom of this net usable cash, you'll notice that's at zero, because I'm just automatically, to be conservative, we're just assuming that it's all going to go back to people, 1.17 million approximately. So that's why it says there's not usable cash at the end of that column. Now the next two pages, we'll stop after these next two pages. I'll skip over this one. This is just, this page is going to be exactly the same as this page. The only difference is this is giving you the current month just for the month of March. Then when I get to this page, it's the same layout, everything. It's just year to date, January through March 2022. And this is just showing you the income statement, but on a departmental kind of viewpoint. So there's that $172,054 right there in net operating income. If I went back to the income statement, the organizational wide income statement, there it is right there again, 175,054. But this is just showing you how the departments contributed to making up this amount. You have basically the only real department in terms of maintenance right here, worsened budget by about 67,000. This is mostly related to stuff like weather, other repair and maintenance, flood type related stuff hitting it. Then you have up here this worsened budget by about 38,000 for ACC security, and this is just as you can guess, this is largely related to hazardous tree removal. In terms of golf, since golf is our biggest revenue center, I'll just hit like real fast highlights for this. Just take a second, but so we have about $302,000 revenue for golf year to date through March. Last year at this time we had about 281,352. So we have about $20,745 more in revenue now than we did last year at this time. Total expenses for golf, which is the actual salary. So the salary expenses here, and then all other expenses here, those two added together comes out to about 195,300. Last year at this time, they have about 177,000 in expenses. So they're better than last year in revenues by 20,745, but they were also higher in expenses than the year before by about 18,250 or so. But basically for golf, net income, approximately 107,000 for golf. Last year they had net income of about 104,000. So they're tracking pretty similar to how they were last year. Better than budgeted by about 42,255. Last year they're better than budget by about 39,034. So they're pretty similar to how they were last year at this time as well. So, but that I would say that those are the big highlights of the financial statements. Anyone have any questions about that?
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah.
Scan any hands up. All right, we will move forward then into continuing business, and we got the N&E manual back this meeting.
Do you want me to talk about it?
Sure.
AJ?
Yeah, if you want to just do a kind of a brief of what we did.
Yeah. We did all of the changes that you had asked for, you being the board, which were the attorney opinion footnotes. We got rid of ASM, whatever that meant, from the definitions table, and added the two committee members to the signature page and replaced the word select with recommend. And that is all cleaned up in the manual that is included in your agenda package. So I'm not sure if I can make a motion because I'm a non-voting board member and I have a big long list of questions for the parliamentarian when we get him on what exactly can a non-voting member do in a meeting. You know, so I'm just winging it here. Do you want me to make a motion or do you want to, AJ?
I'm pretty sure you can make a motion actually, but
I think so too. I'm just not 100% on it. Then I move that the board accept the Sudden Valley Nominations and Elections Manual as presented in your agenda.
second. Timey.
I just had a question. Are we still leaving the section in 4.1.8 about a candidate can use the name other than what's on the deed?
We discussed that.
I just want to be clear on that because that doesn't make sense to me and I can't see why we're making that change.
You made your point when we discussed, and this is what we made the motion to move forward, and she made the changes. And for those watching, I use my legal name. I had to show my ID to sign for all of the bank forms. Let's put an end to this.
I didn't say anything about you. I just asked a question because I don't see the reason for making that change. And I think as a board member, I have the right to ask that question.
I can speak to that. The attorney opinion, which was misrepresented in the past, is pretty darn clear. No, very few people get to read those opinions. So basically, someone with an issue who has read it can make up stuff. And that's basically what happened with the extra fee that was tacked onto home sales too. It's just, it is what it is. And I think you heard Dan speak on names in Washington, and he was agreeable with it. So we voted.
Well, didn't yet, but that's fine.
No, we voted last time to keep the language in. That's what I was referring to.
I was just clarifying.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, we will call the question. The motion on the table was for the board to approve the nominations and elections committee manual as presented in the board agenda packet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So Timey's opposed. Everyone else was in favor. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, N&E Committee, for all your work on that. We appreciate it.
Thanks for your hard work.
Thank you. It was.
All right. Moving to new business, we have a board member resignation. Kim Harris put in her resignation last week. So we will be asking Nancy as the N&E chair to put out a call for applicants to be potentially to be interviewed and one chosen to be appointed to the board. I believe we have to put that out for 30 days, correct?
Yes, and I need a firm ending date for you. It's not exactly 30 days. It can be a little more. So 31 days would be May 27th, or excuse me, June 27th, because 30 days is a Sunday. But we could also move it into the end of June, June 30th. That would be a Thursday before the 4th of July weekend. And that's a possibility too, at close of business, because it turns out there's kind of a hidden section in our bylaw that uses the term close of business. And that's explained in the board vacancy section of the N&E manual. So do you have a preference for ending date for the period? A Monday or a Thursday, basically?
So are we looking to do interviews at the first July meeting?
That would be,
because that would give us, I mean, we could still put out, we could get the announcement put out like Monday. That would give the weekend to put together if you need it. I don't know if you do.
it's all written and I have to get it in the views to tomorrow because I'm already way past the deadline, and the editor graciously gave me a few extra days grace period.
Okay.
But it's up to you. I could submit it to the views and then hold it until Monday to go on the website.
No, that doesn't matter to me. I didn't know what all you had to put together, but I guess it's a lot of copy pasting from previous ones and quick update.
All I need is the ending date and the starting date.
Well, if we're doing interviews the first July meeting, we could just that would be the 14th of July.
Mhm.
You just end the applications on the 30th of June, or the 1st of July is a Friday.
Yeah,
That
I
would satisfy
hesitate.
30 days.
I hesitate to do it Friday, the 1st of June, because it's end of business on a Friday, on a 3-day weekend. And sometimes staffs don't want to be held back. to
So
do
we could just
something
do
like
the
that.
30th of June as a closing date. Is anyone opposed to that?
From an administrative perspective, I think that's a good date to end on.
And closing on that date will be 4:30, I believe.
The 1st is also a Canadian holiday, so it might, there'd be folks that wouldn't probably want to be around for that anyway. Not talking about staff, but talking about a number of community members.
Okay.
All right, well, I don't hear any objections to June 30th closing date, and we can, if you want to send that to Dan and Rich, your announcement tomorrow, Nancy, we can work with them to get it posted on the website.
I may include John in that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Well, and then we'll plan on, at this point, a July 14th for interviews. Does anyone have any opposition to using a standing board meeting for that? I'm certainly all in favor of less meetings. But it could lengthen a meeting, you know, depending upon how many people apply.
AJ, the actual interview date doesn't go into the announcement because you're supposed to set that once entity tells you that you have a candidate. So.
Okay. Well, that gives us 2 weeks from the close date to there, and we could maybe start at 6 p.m. with that meeting to give us, you know, so we're not here as late, start a little bit earlier or something.
Yeah, but you don't have to make that decision now.
Doesn't need to be on the application.
No.
Can't remember.
The way the vacancy procedure is written is once a candidate applications have been submitted, application period has ended, and candidates have been vetted, the entity chair will announce to the board that a date for interviews and voting can be set.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right. Well, then to go along with this, Kim was the treasurer. So I think it would probably be in the board's best interest to move forward with replacing Kim on the executive committee and selecting a new treasurer. Typically, I think everyone but Canoe and Sandy participated in the organizational meeting after the AGM. But how this typically works is we would take, we'd do a voting by raising of hand, and we'd take nominations for that. And how it would work is the first person nominated would get voted on. We'd nominate all the people who board members choose to nominate would be nominated. The first person nominated would be voted on first. So if you don't want that person, you'd have to vote no on them. And if you vote yes and they get a majority, then that is the end of it. And we don't move on to the other people that were nominated. And so Yeah, that basically is the process, and we just vote by raising our hands like we do on any other normal motion. So yeah, I guess, does everyone understand kind of that procedure? Okay. Well, I guess for me, I would nominate, I would nominate Sonia Volt to be the treasurer and to be then replaced as the secretary. Sonia's on the finance committee currently, and she's got a good, strong financial background to be the treasurer. Does anyone else have any nominations? All right, well, I'm not hearing any nominations, which means Sonia would be our new treasurer, which means then we would select a new secretary to the executive committee. So I'd open up the floor for nominations for secretary. Sonia?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Brian Cope. He's like the fourth most senior board director at this point in time. I think with what all's going on, I think it's really important that we've got somebody with some knowledge about what all is going on. There's a lot of work that's happening right now, and we need another committee member that can step in easily and smoothly. So I would like to nominate Brian Cope.
Any other nominations? All right, not hearing any. So Brian would then become the new secretary of the executive committee. So the executive committee of the board is now made up of myself as the president, Josh as vice president, Sonia as the treasurer, and Brian as the secretary. All right, thank you, everyone. We will move forward to the golf course bridge report. I'm thinking I'm maybe passing this over to Tyler to kind of give a quick overview. He was the one who worked with the sub-consultant to complete this.
The report was completed by Integrity Structural Engineering, who's a licensed bridge inspector. The report as a whole reviewed all of the golf course bridges. It identified mostly minor things, which the turf care team is actively taking care of, such as replacement of broken curbs, repairing their irrigation wires and irrigation pipes, which I think all that stuff is probably complete, since I know some of the irrigation system is at least working now from what I've heard. There were a few areas that have some scour and erosion starting along the creek bank, and those areas will need to be addressed. Probably starting that process to evaluate those sooner than later would be best, just to minimize potential larger scale damage. A couple of these locations are upstream of other golf course bridges, and we've witnessed now what happens when scour gets in behind a bridge, with the 8th hole bridge being washed out. So, and then Brian Krulak also identified a couple of the areas to myself where there's some other scour along the creek through the golf course, not specifically at bridges as well. So at this point, we have not taken any steps to engage engineers or officially start this process. I guess I would kind of conclude my real short spiel here, because I think the report's pretty straightforward and mostly discusses fairly minor stuff that's being addressed with if there's any questions. And then second, I know I'm not one to make a motion, but I guess my question is if this board would like P&W to engage a consultant to put together a proposal for evaluating this scour, coming up with some engineers' estimates, and bringing that back to the board as kind of the start of a project here, which would then start a full design permitting process if the board decided to move that forward.
Sam?
Well, I'm a little curious about the pictures that I saw in the reports, and just curious if any of that would, in your views of previous work like that, would there be any sandblasting on some of that structural steel under there that and then get repainted, or is that just something that's acceptable here in the Northwest?
I would say it's not necessarily uncommon to see rusted steel in that. At this point, I don't know that trying to sandblast and repair those specific items would necessarily be in the best economical interest of Sudden Valley. I'd have to, I guess, figure out kind of more what specific pictures you're talking about. I know I've seen a couple of the bearing plates, a couple of the pipe hangers for the irrigation system have rust on them and that. From looking at these bridges themselves, I haven't seen, that I recall anyways, it has been a couple months where there was major issues, I think, that jump out at me where there's tremendous amounts of rust. I guess that would lead me to believe there's structural issues, and this report doesn't mention that from what I've seen. And Ken Wilson, the inspector, is certified in this, and I'd basically be deferring to him because he has a lot more experience with that than myself.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, when you bring back these recommendations, can they kind of prioritize and so that we can make a determination of what we can postpone until next year, since we've got that golf bridge. This is almost $400,000 that was unbudgeted already this year. And so is it possible to do it like that so we can look at them maybe potentially individually? So some of this may be able to be pushed off until next year.
Yeah, definitely. And the reality is probably with where we're at time frame wise, these scour and erosion repairs would require design and permitting and would have to be done during the Lake Whatcom watershed window, unless Whatcom County was going to deem this a true emergency project, allowing that to happen after September 30th. So I think the reality is this is probably a project that could be started this year, but construction would actually be deferred until next year just due to a permitting standpoint.
So basically, we're looking at like a capital project here then, for sure. This is pretty significant work. We're probably going to have mitigation that goes along with it too, since we're going to be on the creek banks.
Yes, that would be very likely. And from a cost standpoint, yeah, I would consider this would need to be a capital project.
So I guess maybe we, need to have you do some upfront legwork for us to bring back some proposals on what design and permitting would look like then. Do we need to have you come back with a proposal on how much time and money it would take for you to get that moving, or?
I think my initial thought would be, if it was acceptable by the board, that I would engage an engineer and bring him out for a site visit and basically ask him for a couple hours of their time to put together a proposal kind of based on what they see, what they think the permitting is going to require, and just kind of identify a design/permitting cost proposal that could be approved by the board with very minimal upfront before that's approved. And then once that process was complete, we'd kind of do like we did with the road projects or others, where then we bring it forward with engineer's estimate for overall project approval prior to submitting permit applications or going out for bid.
Okay. Does anyone have any objections to having Tyler do some legwork and bring back some proposals for us on design and permitting for the creek bank erosion through the golf course? And then my understanding then is the rest of the items that were identified repairs needed in the report on the bridges we're doing through operations with the turf care staff.
I know they've been working on it. I know the one bridge that had a soft beam, Turf Care addressed that a few months ago with putting a metal boot around the beam to get it shored up and safe again. So I think I would need to double check with Brian Krulak where he's at on it, but I believe they're pretty much addressing all this as operations, or the balance of it.
Okay. So there's no objections then for proposals being brought back to the board and then sometime in the next few meetings. All right. Well, it sounds like a plan then.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tyler, for giving the 2 presentations tonight. I think that'll do a lot to help the community see some of the stuff that's working on and continue to work with you on getting some of the stuff written out so we can push it out to the community in that format too.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler.
All right, we'll move on to last round of property owner comments.
Yeah, we still do have a few people here with us, and we've got a hand raised from Linda. I'm going to go ahead and bring you on over here, Linda. If you give your name and address, please.
Linda Bradley, 5 Wisteria Lane. I have a question for, I have a couple of questions for Tyler, if he's still around. There's a project from 2021 that was a large culvert, C315, that didn't get done for whatever reason. I think it has to do with it being fish passage, and he didn't mention that at all. And the other question I have is he talked about blah, 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 about the drainage projects. Is that CVC he's talking about?
So Tyler, I think already left, but the culvert 315, I believe, had some permitting stuff, and yes, it was needing to be made fish passage. There was also developer extension agreements that needed to be put in place due to utility conflicts with Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer District, and I'm not sure that those issues have been totally resolved yet at this point in time.
He didn't mention it at all, and it's like a really big project. It's like a $300,000 project. And then is the reference he made to the drainage thing, is that CVC or is this something different?
That is something different, I believe.
Okay,
it's
so
just general, some of it you're talking about the minor, because that project, if you go back and look at the capital memo, it involves the pothole and grading down at the marina. It involves some minor drainage improvements, which is just like there's like, I think 1 or 2 small culverts to replace, a couple kind of ditch cleaning, and some minor culvert cleaning. And then there was some asphalt repairs that were not full-blown rebuilds like the big project that we had, but bigger issues than what could be addressed through the pothole contract.
Okay.
And so that's all done under our programmatic permit. We have a programmatic permit to do, basically it's like kind of just general maintenance activities. Certainly could you know, some of that drainage work could fall under a CVC program, but I don't think that's the plan at this point.
Okay, then I have some questions for Joel and I'm done. Do you know, for Joel, I have 3 questions. Number 1 is why in the March statement was there no lease income for the association? That's my first question for Joel. My second question is, and that maybe has to do with the treasurer too, I saw Joel brought up some updated capital reports. When is the first quarter capital reports going to come out to the membership? Since it's, you know, we're rolling up here, you know, March was the end of the first quarter, so I wondered when we get to see them. And last but not least, there's been no change in developed and vacant lots. And normally at the end of every year, Gil will move a bunch of lots from vacant over into developed, and we have so many so much building going on right now. Was there no change in that at the end of 2021 into 2022? And those are my questions.
Okay, so the first question about the lease income. So that lease income is going to be largely related to El Agave. And of course, right now there's the whole situation with El Agave is a little nebulous, I guess you could say, in terms of the legal situation with this. So there isn't like a concrete amount for a lease amount between us and El Agave yet. So that's why we've been holding off recording any lease revenue in that line item. Now, a second line item for that is also, or a second amount that gets in there is Christ the King Church lease amount, which is smaller, much smaller, obviously, than El Agave. And that literally just comes down to a matter of timing. Davey will like batch up in terms of journal entries, which he records lease income for Christ the King throughout the year. So that's basically the answer for that.
Okay, and the library is lumped in that too, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, I just wondered why that was blank.
Yeah. And yeah, so that would all show up basically in her same journal entry when she repairs that. And of course, throughout the year, it's not as critical if it doesn't get in one month or the other. It becomes very important, like for year end for the audit purposes. And in terms of for the capital, that spreadsheet that you saw me pull up when I was doing the financial statements, it didn't make it into it. Looks like, because obviously, since you're asking the question, I can see it didn't make it into the board agenda. But if you just go and look at the finance, last week's finance agenda, that'll be addendum 3 on the website. And then, so you'll be able to see it right there. It'll show that capital report.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what was your third question again?
The third question is, if you go look at the breakdown, that final page that's of the basic.
Oh, right. Yeah, vacant developed lots.
And
yeah.
The number of, usually there's a big change where Gil will transfer developed lots that have sold and the builders have received their deposits back and stuff, and that hasn't changed. Were there no change whatsoever at the end of the year and into 2022? It's all remained the same.
Gil, I believe like throughout the year when there is a change with a builder, he'll make it in the system. So, I mean, it should be, as far as I know, I believe he does it month to month. Whenever
all right, because sometimes it stays that way almost all year long. And then it just does one big change. Because it's just like, I can go back and look. It's just that it's several months, and that's why I was wondering why. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just a matter of when Gil actually, he can do a change in the system, but then he also does this, his spreadsheet, which you see at the very end of the report. He'll update that from month to month. So there could be a little lag as well between when he's updating in the system and when it reflects in his spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's just that number. I think it was that number when we were in November last year too. And like I was saying, it's been several months and I just wondered why there wasn't a change, but that answers my question. I'll just keep looking and wondering what's going on.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Linda. All right, I've moved you back to the attendees and I have Susan up next. Susan, if you could give your name and address, please.
Susan Banton, 1 High Cliff Lane. I have a question about board member terms. With the scuttlebutt, well, it's not scuttlebutt, with the things going on, people are saying, why are we doing a recall when 2 of the terms end? And I looked on the website and I can't see a listing anywhere of, you know, AJ, your term is up in, you know, 2023 or whatever. And it would be very helpful because when you talk to people, you could say, well, hey, and it's in black and white and it's there. And that was one question. And we have all the, it says executive committee meetings 2021. Have there been no executive committee meetings in 2022? And that's why there's nothing posted, or should those not be posted? And that was just a question I had. And I want to thank you for all your hard work, even if I do disagree with your decisions sometimes, because I know what it's like to put all the time and effort in, and then everyone, you can't do anything right. So even if I disagree with you, I am not signing a recall petition just because I figure I can use it for voting. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Susan. All right, I've moved you back to the attendees as well.
So me and Joshua Bowens' term is up in November of this year. And also to go along with that, Sandy and Kanu were appointed this year, which means their terms will end in November of this year as well. And then with Kim resigning once, and that person who gets appointed term will also end in November as a result. And so, yeah, there'll be 5 seats open in November. And yes, 2 of those people that are on the recall terms are up in November. Nancy? Obviously, everyone is welcome to run for re-election. Again, you can do 2 consecutive terms before you have to sit out a year.
Not only are there 5 director positions that will be open, there will be 8 on the ACC committee. Only Keith goes through. And 4 on the, no, 5 on the N&E, because the 3 of us cannot run for a second term consecutively. We have 2-year terms, and then we cannot run again immediately. We have to sit out a year. So there's lots of things to run for.
All right, we've got a hand raised from Anne. All right, Anne, I'll go ahead and bring you over here. And if you give your name and address, please.
Hi, Ann Cope, 52 Louise Rive Drive. This is for Nancy, actually. Nancy, could you maybe explain the timeline? If a petition is presented, say, in 2 weeks, how long that process takes? It would be a couple months, correct?
The board needs to announce an SGM within 60 days of the day the petitions are presented. They announce a date without knowing whether or not all those signatures are good or whether enough of them are valid. So the first thing we do is go through all those signatures and decide if they're members in good standing and nobody wrote in their cat's name or their dog's name or other just, I want to sign something here so you'll leave me alone stuff. if there are enough valid signatures, then we start. Oh, let's see. I had worked this out. I really don't want to go farther with this because it's too up in the air. I don't even know when that petition might be submitted. I mean, there's no way for me to get any information about it because it's all on Facebook and I'm not. Plus, they probably wouldn't let me on those sites anyway. So I can get as far as what I've told you so far, which is 60 days after the petitions are presented, the board will set a date, and then we have to vet them and see if they needed to set a date, which they can always cancel if there are not enough petition signatories.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question? So you say the petitions have to be presented to the board. Does that, so the board is only really the board during meetings. So does that mean it has to be presented at a board meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
It has to be at a board meeting. And somebody, well, has to stand up there and say, here. And I'm not sure if it goes to the president or the secretary or if that even matters. They get presented. I think at one point there were petitions tied up in a pink ribbon. So anyway, then N&E gets them and sits in front of a spreadsheet and checks it all out. Are these members in good standing, and are they indeed members and not your cat?
Thanks for that clarification. I appreciate that.
There's just not enough information out there for me to start speculating. And I know if I speculate, somebody will think it's gospel and I'll hear about it later. Sorry.
Thank you. Am I still there?
You actually are, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it as clear as possible. And I know it's not possible to make it perfectly clear, but this process, this very costly process, will be to remove 2 members at most 3 months before their term is up, most likely. And it's very unlikely to be successful, but thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Right.
That's a fair assessment.
Thank you, man.
A few months before their term would be up, right?
All right, I've returned in to the attendees at this point. I do have a hand raised again from Linda. Linda, I'll go ahead and bring you over one more time here. If I could have your name and address, please.
Hi, Linda Bradley, 5 Wisteria Lane. Nancy, I hope you'll check before you do your vetting if you get the petitions. The petitions, the members don't have to be in good standing. For voting, they do. To vet them for a petition, they just have to be members, not tenants. You can look, that's how we've always done it in the past, and I've done enough of these SGMs. You have to verify that they're members. And you also have to verify that you don't have a husband and a wife that own one property voting twice. Then you
Yeah, you can see how far ahead I've thought about this. I got to the 60 days and then we'll see what the next step is.
I know, and I've done it way too much. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
It's for the meeting.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Linda. All right, I've gone ahead and returned Linda to the attendees as well. Anybody else for property owners' comments? Yeah, might be everybody for tonight.
All right. Sam, you got something?
Yes, I do. Congratulations to Sonia and Brian Cope with the new position, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. Probably just like the other stuff, and it's something to get sink your teeth into. So thanks for taking that on.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?